I'm going to be showing you all how to smoke a prime brisket. This one's about 16.85 pounds to be exact, and it's going to be a great day, so stay tuned. What I'll try and do before you start your cook is grab a big old bag of charcoal and get a chimney starter, which I'll show you guys in just a second. And then if you guys also have a gas burner outside, it makes for a great way to actually start the charcoal itself, and that way you don't have to use like lighter fluid or like paper towels or any kind of adulterants that can go into the actual smoking. So let me go grab that chimney starter and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got the fire starter going, and let me just show y'all what that looks like real quick. So I just have a simple, Weber grill, and luckily it has a gas burner on the outside. And this makes for a really easy way to get your charcoal lit and going pretty quickly. So we're gonna come back in about 10 minutes or so and kind of check on where that's at. Okay, so now that we're waiting on the briquettes to light up, I'm just gonna quickly show you guys the brisket we're gonna be smoking. So this is a 16.85 pound brisket, so it's obviously pretty big. Prime grade from our local grocery store. And what you wanna do before you start to cook is just kind of let it sit out for like 30 minutes or so to let the meat come up to temp. And I know there's different theories about, well, if the meat's really cold, it actually attracts a lot more smoke flavor, and I can do some more research and follow up on that. But basically what you want to do before you start is make sure you have your meat at hand ready. Grab some any kind of seasoning. In my case, since we're in Central Texas, you want to use kosher salt, black pepper. That makes for an excellent combination. And that's honestly all you need. Good barbecue doesn't need a whole lot of different sauces or any kind of seasoning or flavoring. Really all you need is just kosher salt and, of course, freshly cracked black pepper. And that's what is famous in Texas for barbecue. As well, you want to try and get some butcher paper, and again, there's different ways on actually wrapping the brisket. In terms of like tin foil, butcher paper. You can do all kinds of cooks without even wrapping it, really. And I can sort of walk you all through the process on that later when it comes to it. But basically, those are the three types of things you want to have before you start your cook: brisket, your seasoning, and then your type of wrapping. All right, so let's get out of here. And as you can see, this thing is raging right now. So this was about probably 10 minutes. I don't know if I set a timer or not, but look at that. See how easy that is? And all you have to do really now is just grab a pair of thermal gloves right here and grab it, and then sprint over to your smoker and put that bad boy in there. So let's do that right now. And you want to be pretty careful because there's embers and flames and stuff flying around. You don't want to hit your eye. I'm kind of having to squint my eyes right now. And here's my smoker, by the way. It freaking rained earlier, so that's also another thing you guys want to probably pay attention to. You guys don't want to be smoking in rainy weather, but since it's too close to Christmas, it doesn't really matter. So let's put this right here, and have some wood right there. I got some pan going, and this is the fire grate right here for those of y'all that may not be as familiar with the offset smoker. You don't want to put it directly on the actual steel itself because that's just going to degrade it further, and I know steel is pretty durable, but it just makes a lot more sense for airflow and for long-term maintenance and storage of your smoker. Okay, so let's get this on there. Damn, this thing's hot. And that's it. So before we get started actually cooking the meat again, I'm just gonna open this up to provide better airflow for the wood and the air to actually catch it and get the whole process started pretty quickly. Because it's about 10 a.m. right now, and you don't really want to be cooking all day and all night. So that's another thing. You want to be able to properly gauge the time that you start smoking the barbecue, and then, you know, once everything gets going, I mean, before you know it, it's like 2 hours, an hour or two before you can actually put the meat on. So definitely plan ahead and get your meat prepared, the wood prepared, fire prepared, everything going by a certain time that you set. Budget about an hour or two, like I just said, and then budget another 12 plus hours to actually cook the meat itself. So now that we have this open, it should hopefully catch the wood a lot quicker and, you know, everything going quick. So I'll catch y'all in a minute. Then let me just get my little shaker thing. So again, you want to have kosher salt, black pepper, and all you have to do really is just lather this thing up. Now I know people tend to, you know, go off on measuring, you know, the right amount of, you know, seasoning and all this other kind of crap, but honestly guys, I'm the BBQ Dropout, so I don't really have time to calculate a bunch of math, you know. Let's get this side ready. See, look at that. See that brisket? See how nice and even the seasoning is? Obviously there's some spots like right there that's kind of hard to get just because of the actual frame of this little container itself, but really all you guys want to do is just pour the salt and pepper on that and let it sit for a couple minutes, and then once that wood actually gets started, we're going to be putting this bad boy on there, so stay tuned in just a second. Okay, so one thing you may want to consider also is actually getting a wireless thermometer. And what it does basically is allows you to you know, just probe the meat, and then you can walk away, go in your office or something, check the internal temperature. So in terms of what part of the brisket you actually want to put the probe into, I recommend, depending on which portion of the meat that you're most concerned about, obviously, you want to just stick it in there and make sure it's among the most thickest part of the meat. So right there, you know, that's a pretty thick piece, so you can just stick it in, and that's all it really takes. So now if you look back on here, you should start to see the internal temp, and then you could obviously increase the desired temp. So if it goes over this, it'll start notifying you that, hey, you know, it's going over about 171 degrees. So going forward, right now we're going to want to let this wood catch again because it slowly started to go out, and we're going to want it to actually go all the way over to 205 or 203 degrees internal. Okay, so right here, I don't know if you guys can see, while I was gone working on some you know, blog related stuff, you know, this fire actually went out. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. You want to make sure that the fire or the wood itself doesn't actually start choking or going out. In this case, you can see a lot of white smoke and plume has started to form. So what you want to do to solve that is just come out here, and if you guys have your meat already on the grill, I recommend not actually opening up that grate, because you want to, you know, trap that heat inside. So to get proper airflow, if you have an offset smoker, you want to try and just open this door right here so it'll allow for proper current to go through. So you just give this a couple minutes, 5-10 minutes, come back, and, you know, hopefully it'll start catching again. And then once it does that, then you can start, you know, modifying this to make sure that the airflow isn't too strong and the wood doesn't start burning too hot. And that's just another way to manage your fire temp. Okay, that is exactly what you want for a wood burning offset smoker. So just a second ago, I had to repeatedly put some wood in there, let all the vents up and open so the wood can catch. I came back about 20 minutes later, and then the wood starts sort of crusting over with this white ash, and then I also just put another piece of wood in there to let it burn. But that is exactly what you want. Hear the crackling. It also has, you know, obviously flames, very clear smoke. You don't really see, except for that new piece I just put in, you really don't see any white smoke emitting. Same goes for over here. Look at that. You can't see really any smoke coming out whatsoever. The grate temp. Now these are fairly inaccurate, but this just gives you a rough idea in terms of the cooking temperature. It's obviously going up a lot more than it was. It was actually in the blue corridor range right there. But now that the wood is going, very clean smoke, we're ready to finally start cooking some good brisket. So I'm just gonna let this open, and I may add another piece of wood or two just to keep this fire going. You know, like I said, I'm gonna be doing a hot and fast cook now. So you really wanna get this blazing hot so you can cook that meat. Okay, so the brisket has reached well beyond the stall, and actually right now in the flat, meaning the part where that probe is inserted into, it's actually at 185. So this brisket is well overdone in terms of being wrapped. But to show you guys how that works, basically all you have to do is grab the brisket. I have a big scraper because it's that much easier to get it off the grate. Sometimes it has a tendency to stick. What you want to do is just try to fry it up as best you can without actually slicing the meat underneath, because if you do that, all the moisture is going to go out. So once we have it off the grate, you just put it back in your thing like so. And let me go ahead and move this for y'all. Okay, so I actually had to come back inside because that smoke was just killing me. So this is what a brisket looks like when it's just about ready. You can tell the bark is extremely black. There's some splitting going on right here. That's indicating that the meat's coming to temp. And my little dog, Harley, is right there. She's been a total champ. She always follows me around whenever I cook barbecue. But basically, to actually go ahead and wrap this thing, you know, you just get a thing of butcher paper. Now your method for, you know, wrapping with butcher paper can vary. You know, I kind of did a kind of a poor job, honestly, trying to wrap it. So what you want to do is just try to figure out how you can evenly wrap it like this, and then just cover all the sides so you can make sure you want to pack this thing nice and tight. It's just kind of a process, honestly. Okay, so this is basically, you know, what it looks like. Now you can hold it, you know, transport it pretty easily, which is what I'm doing right now. And I'm gonna put this thing back on the smoker, so let's do that. Okay, so I just pulled the brisket off the smoker. It was temping right at around 200 degrees. And just because it temps out at 200 degrees doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually ready. One of the main things with brisket is to pull it at 200 degrees, but you know, get a toothpick, for example, and make sure that every time you actually can stick something in the brisket, it literally goes in like butter. Like, look how easy that is. I don't know if you can zoom in on that, but like, you literally get a toothpick and then just stick it in there. I mean, that goes in like with no resistance whatsoever. So that's another way to be able to tell how to tell if your brisket's done. Let me try it over here. Especially if you don't fully trust your thermometer like mine, and you really have to rely on you know, the feel for the brisket. So that's why whenever you do your research and look online, you'll see that people really will say just wait till it probes tender like butter, and it's literally just like sticking a toothpick through a stick of butter, and that's about it. So think of like muscles, right? That thing has been on there for like 12 plus hours, and all the muscles are contracting and really tense and hard. Well, what you want to do is just let it rest. Don't cut into it. Let it rest for about like 6 to 12 hours. So put it in a faux cambro, which is like an ice cooler. In my case, I'm just going to put it inside of an oven, and then just let it rest. If you want, you can stick the thermometer in there. Let the internal temp come down to around like 130, 140, 150 maybe at the very most. But the single most important thing with brisket, aside from when you pull it, is how long you let it rest. Because I've gone through many briskets, and any time that I cut into it after even 30 minutes to an hour, it just went totally dry on me. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, so I finally pulled the brisket out of the oven. It rested for about like 12 hours, so that's quite a long time to rest a brisket, but I was also holding it at a steady temperature. So if you want to just quickly look at the brisket itself. So what you want to do is the grain, basically the way the muscle runs, it runs that way, and you want to cut against the grain. So you want to cut this way, because if you were to cut that way with the grain, then the brisket would be really tough and stringy, and it'd just be really hard to eat, even though you cooked it to the right temp. So without further ado, let me try and move this over. Now this is probably my favorite part of the brisket right here, right when you can, first see your work of art. Look at that. Now, to keep it from drying out though, you want to keep cutting it like that, and it's actually cutting pretty good.
Make sure the butter's really soft. We want the bread to get nice and crispy, nice and golden brown. Okay, now I'll start by putting the sandwich face down on the skillet, and then I'll butter the top side. That makes it easier. I haven't figured out another way to butter both sides of the sandwich.
Oh yeah.
And not get butter all over the place.
And see, when you hold the slices together like that, that's when that really helps you maintain the moisture so it doesn't dry out. I'm just gonna cut a couple more slices out of this. Prime grade brisket right here. So, look at that. See that? Now, one thing you want to be able to do to test the brisket is it should be able to hold itself like that, but then it can just pull away instantly as soon as you pull it. So I'm going to give it to my grandpa. There you go.
Stuff.
Yeah, that's a little test piece. How is that?
That's good.
Yeah. See the smoke ring on that thing?
Mm-hmm.
Real nice smoke ring. Now what you want to do to get the more fattier part, if you will, cut it in half. Get a load of this. Look at that. See that? My God, look at that. Now that I told you guys the flat, it actually runs over the point, which I can go on tell you guys in future videos, but basically the flat is what I just cut right here, and then as it goes over the point, it starts thinning out, and then you can get more of the point, which is the more fattier end. But the way you want to cut that is you turn it 90 degrees, because the grain runs basically the opposite way for the point versus the flat. You cut it half like this. This is actually a really good brisket. Look at that. And then you can start slicing it that way, which is what I'll do right now. So the flat is, or the point is a little bit more, I don't want to say pot roasty, but it's definitely more tender, and that's by far my most favorite cut. And then you can just start slicing as you want. You can make burnt ends. Basically, you just chop this up into little cubes, and then you can either put them in the oven or throw them back on the smoker. Anything really. So that's it. That's how to smoke a prime grade brisket, hot and fast. Doesn't really matter how long it really takes to do it, as long as you just pull it at the right temp and hold it for a long enough time. But anyways, talk to you guys later. See ya.